Hello, welcome to this episode of The Inner Estate with your host, Bridget Stuart. My guest today is Kim Page. Kim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to talk with you. You are the owner and founder of Kim Page Consulting, and you focus on an entire program that you've created that allows people to create real change, real identity level shifting in their development through the process that you've created with purpose-based transformation. So all of that sounds like things that I would love to talk about. I know you would, and hopefully our listeners would love to hear about. So Kim, can you share with me, explain more about all of this and your passion behind purpose-based transformation and what you do with Kim Page Consulting?
Yes, I would love to. I started doing this work about 19 years ago, and I found myself that I just kept having this big vision of what I wanted, the impact I wanted to make, who I was here to be. But I kept hitting up against some of the same walls over and over again. And what happened for me, I think happens for a lot of us. I just got really frustrated thinking that I just couldn't find my way through. I didn't have what it takes to be successful. And I really started to be more critical and like hard on myself. And it's so easy to look around and see other people just seemingly surviving or thriving, right? Where I
Mhm.
just felt kind of stuck in survival mode. And it took me down this road of really kind of uncovering this idea that we have this greater call within us. And something that for a lot of us, we have felt for a long time. I'm sure too, you, Bridget, you have felt like this sense of just wanting to impact, wanting to give back, wanting to be part of
Yes.
something bigger. But then how do we actually get there and arrive at that place? And so it sent me down this road of really analyzing how do we uncover what that call is? How do we figure out this potential? And how do we rise into something different? And so I've learned to call that process a purpose based transformation.
Mhm.
There's something about us that we evolve and transform into that allows us to be the person to kind of carry this forward in the world. And so it's been 19 years of work and a labor of love, 100%.
And that must be exciting because you are enjoying what you do so much, it's not feeling like work.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think too, like for me, I don't know for you or your listeners, but like the endless struggle, the endless striving, like it gets to a point where it's just too heavy. And I found myself wanting to make this impact without it having to weigh so heavy, like on me, right? To kind of get into that place where it is flowing and fun. Have you found that to be true yourself?
Absolutely. Yes. Because you can anyone, whether you are building your own company or having that dream, even if you're working for someone else, it can take over and seep out into your regular life.
Yes.
And whether you enjoy it or not, it can become heavy. And I think we all go through stages where things, I don't like using this phrase, but they have to be heavy for a while for you to actually, either create systems or processes or things. But when it just goes on and on forever, I think that's when people end up with burnout or leaving a career they actually love because they temporarily fall out of love with it and it create a long-term solution to what could have been something that could have been navigated. And I believe you help people navigate through and self-discover what they truly desire in terms of what they want their work to be like.
Yeah. Well, you just said something really important, though, that I want to go back to. Like,
Mhm.
there is a certain time where we're building the strength, right? And the muscle to do what we want to do. And those times do feel a little bit heavier for us. The challenge is when we are in this kind of constant space of trying to survive, right? And so we're coming from usually not feeling kind of safe enough to like expand or a real true sense of what we bring to the table. And we can get caught up in trying to always get to what's next or to prove ourselves in some different ways. And that's when it starts to get heavier or when we've kind of outgrown a role and we're ready to kind of step into something next, then what we're doing to build those strengths, at some point, how do we let go of it and step into something that is more flowing and easy and graceful?
What you just described should, another word I don't like to use very often, be exciting. and feel like you are accomplishing something. And yet, many of us, myself included, when you make that change to something that will have more flow and ease and more impact, it's scary. It is scary to step away from, but this is what I've known at my corporate job for 20 years, or this is what I've known for the last 11 years with this, agency. It can be scary even if it's exciting. Do you find that that stops a lot of people?
I think that it does. I think there's a certain way that we've been doing life, and we talk about that as like our comfort zone, right? Like we're in this space that we know what to expect and we know what to do, and we can somewhat predict how life is going to go if we stay in that space. But what happens for a lot of us is that we feel this call us to some kind of expansion or this call to doing things just a little bit differently or taking a new position or starting that business or leaving the corporate world or rising into a leadership is like we feel kind of pulled and called in a certain direction, right? But when we start to go in that direction, we have to let go of
Mhm.
all of the ways that have kind of got us to where we're at, right? It challenges us to think and work a little bit differently. And so it's like somebody's taken off the training wheels or something, right? And we're
Right.
being kind of our own authentic way of doing that. Like when you first started your podcast, right? Like you had to find like your voice and like your way of doing it. And at first that was you probably looked around and thought, well, what's the right way to do it, right? But so you step into the space where you're just relying on you and really learning to trust yourself in a different way.
You are absolutely right. I have to laugh because the very first recording that I did, which is not the first episode that I aired, but the first recording,
Yeah.
right within 2 minutes of when the guest was going to arrive, and I thought I had everything situated, 2 minutes before he entered, my virtual background disappeared. And I had like a plain white wall with a door behind me. And then midway through the recording, a ring light just fell from a shelf, fell all the way down and we kept talking. So it's so funny, you are right. And I'm glad you brought up that example. My lighting was awful because the ring light fell. And you know what? I didn't care. I kept going. We used that recording. I put the video out there because I hope that if anyone does see that one, and they're like, wow, this one looks different than any of her other ones, it would inspire them that you don't start off. By the way, I'm still totally learning and growing. Um, but you start where you start. And when you have that true passion, you just make it happen.
It's true. It's a good example of having, like, a lot of resistance happen, right? Like, I feel like when
Yes.
we're stepping into something new, right, like, there's, like, a short circuit that happens within and around us oftentimes,
Right.
right? Because we're going against the grain of what we've been taught, and on the inside, it can feel unsettling and kind of, unsafe,
Hmm.
even though, like, what you describe, I love because you knew deep within that this was where you belonged and the chapter that you were starting, but it feels scary. It doesn't look perfect.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest thing is that it takes us out of that comfort zone. But that's where we expand, right? And that's where we grow and where we learn that we didn't die when we
That's
took
right.
that
Yes.
leap, you
I finished that and called my sister in Florida and laughed until my cheeks hurt
know?
about all the little things that happened. And yet I was proud of myself that I still did it. So this takes me to, if there's anyone listening that wants to make a change, or they want to leave that corporate job, or they currently have their own business and they want to sell it. I mean, we could sit here and list, if anyone wants true change, particularly in their career or business ownership, and yet they are not taking action. Is there one thing you could recommend where they could start? Where do you even start with that?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think most of the people that come to me kind of feel that sense of stagnating where they know they want something different than what they have right now, but they feel stuck. They don't know where to start. I always say the number one thing that my people don't know, one, they generally are very successful, but they don't know what they want. And so it does feel kind of overwhelming at like, where is it that we even start in this process? And what I always want to help people understand is that most of us are high performers and we've gotten good at a lot of things. And we're great at reading the room, but we can often struggle at reading ourselves. So when we hit a point where we want something different, we often think that we can kind of get through that on our own, right? Just like push through or figure it out. But we've become so lost in what we've been doing that most people, the place that we start is kind of coming back to the core of like, who am I? Really figuring out how we've left ourselves behind and some of the ways that we have kind of become everything to everyone,
Yes.
but not to us. And so I've created a blueprint is the kind of the best word that I can call it. It's a system of archetypes. And archetypes they're basically a characterization. So Superman is an archetype of like the
Right.
strong and silent type, right? And so what I find is when people come in and they've lost themselves and they don't know where to start, that they can get a sense of who they are through this body of work that I've created called the archetypes. And it begins to hold up a mirror that says, here is kind of the essence of who you are. Here's what it feels like when you're in the room. Here's this thing that you do like nobody else can do it. And it holds this mirror up for those of us who tend to be the ones to see other people, but aren't usually the ones that people see, if that makes sense.
It does. And when you say that a lot of people, probably a lot of people listening to this are also high achievers because they'd be drawn to this type of
Mhm.
conversation. We do become really good at a lot of things. Typically, I think most of us lean into our strengths and continue to develop them. And yet, there's also things that usually we're not good at. And I know that when I was looking to make my own changes, I knew they were coming with me.
Hmm.
I was not worried about the strengths I was bringing with me, but I had some concern over, well, I'm also bringing with me the things I'm not good at. Is that a stumbling block for people? And do you have any recommendation? Like, how do you manage that if you're going to create real change?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like what you're saying is how do I overcome those things that have held me back?
Yes,
Is that kind of what I'm hearing you
because they
say?
are coming with me into my new company that I opened. My new
Absolutely.
coaching company, the weaknesses that I own came with me, right?
Yeah,
So, like,
absolutely. Yes.
how do people navigate that?
Well, I think the hardest part about that is a lot of those are really hardwired into us. And so they're unconscious to us. Like we don't know what we're doing. And even if somebody says, "Hey, you don't really let people in and that's holding you back." We don't even know like what that means to us. So how we would absolutely start to change it. The way that I work with that, I found a technique called inner family systems, and it really helps us identify the ways that we are wired for performance and for success. And they're these subtle unconscious ways of being that override our own natural strengths, right? And so, for example, not letting people in, that's a protective mechanism,
Yes.
right? Like, for myself, I grew up on my and so I'm very independent. And so one way I took care and protected myself was to do everything myself,
Mhm.
right? But it kept me safe from being disappointed or those kinds of things. But it also kept me small and it didn't really allow people into my world to get to know me who would then want to turn around and help support either my vision or mission or whatever that looked like. So, this approach, using this, can help identify those patterns and discover why we're wired that way and what we can start to do to unwire. Because until we can fully understand our wiring, we are stuck. There is
Yes.
no other choice we can make. Insight alone is not enough to create the shift.
Wait, you mean acknowledging and naming what it is doesn't just make it go evaporate?
I know.
What?
I know.
We actually have to untie the knot?
And this is where we embrace, though, the transformation. I know Bridget is like, right,
Making me
we're always
cry.
working on ourselves. There's always more. But this is where we embrace transformation because the part of us that wants to keep us safe has many other gifts to it besides being hypervigilant all the time.
Mhm.
And so naming and embracing is part of it, but kind of exploring and wiring it gives us this whole new edge. This releases all this new energy and it takes us out of that survival mentality and into more of that sovereignty where we're self led and we're leading from a place that's empowered versus one that's trying to just stay safe.
And sovereignty, I know that that's a word that the survival to sovereignty is a whole part of your mission, vision, and purpose. Could you explain a little more what sovereignty means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, this is a really personal journey of kind of finding what sovereignty is. And so I'm very passionate about writing and talking and helping people create this shift. But sovereignty is where your leadership, your identity, your purpose, it's where it aligns with who you really are. So we're not leading from fear. We're not leading to belong or to fit in. We're not watering down what we have to say for that relationship, right? Or to make everybody else happy around us, right? We've let go of the fear, the pressure, and the responsibility. And we're leading instead from a sense of kind of our own deeper truth, which takes time to get to. We have to get through the layers of survival to get to what our own truth is. But it's how we want to lead and live that's unique to us, right? It has its own distinctions, but it's a sense of kind of internal authority. And
Mhm.
I always say, I spent a long time trying to build a life that I love, but that kind of kept me in this performance and survival zone. And stepping into sovereignty, finding that internal authority is helping me build a life that loves me back because it's just
Nice.
aligned with who I am. Right.
So you were striving to build a life that you loved,
Hmm.
and somehow you shifted slightly and made it a life that also loves you back.
Yes. Instead of this striving towards putting energy into always improving, hitting the next target, right? There's this sense of needing to like build and perform for this great life. But a lot of us build a really wonderful life that on paper anybody would take. Like on
Yes.
paper, right? It looks and it feels good. But to actually live in it or to be in that space, we often find that most high performers that we build something that takes a lot of our own energy to sustain, but it's not self sustaining. It doesn't sustain us back. It doesn't give as much to us as we give to it. And so it can feel exhausting, right?
Yes. And how much does, this may not be the right word, perfectionism play into this?
Perfectionism is definitely part of the wiring of survival that says, right, if I just do it right,
Hmm.
then I'll be safe. Right? And so it's the strategy that keeps us kind of checking all of the boxes. And all of us have an inner perfectionist, by the way, right? Like as a high
Yes.
performer, we're driven from a different way. And so wanting to have this commitment to excellence is part of the perfectionism is it's simply a commitment to excellence. The part that we learn to unwire from is the self criticism that happens when we don't achieve it perfectly, right? Like the desire to achieve it with excellence is one thing, but the criticism towards ourselves when we don't, that's the piece we start to unwire. So we still get driven to succeed, but without the heaviness of it needing to be perfect.
I think that's very critical if someone is truly going to have long lasting change, not change for a season or change.
Yeah.
Okay, this first quarter, I need to do X, which sometimes those little full court press, sometimes they're game changers, right? So you may have a change in impact, but if you want like a lasting change, I think
Yeah.
making that transformation is mission critical of stepping away
It's
from that perfectionism.
it's huge in so many ways. Like you had said earlier, like what happens professionally and the changes we make also impact us personally, right? And so if I'm somebody who has been wired to be really hard on myself if I don't get it right, right? It's a protective mechanism to keep me from feeling judged or not belonging, right? So it has a really positive intention. So when I can identify that with myself and learn to rewire it, guess how much easier I'm going to be on the people around me,
Right.
right?
Right. When you lead yourself in that manner and you have that self-perception, that even creates a ripple effect, and it's gonna impact everyone around you in circles, going out from you.
Huge.
The It's huge, and if someone is desiring to impact more people, I believe that is a place where anyone could start today.
Well, and that's why I get a lot of people who say, gosh, nobody can kind of meet my expectations. I have
Mhm.
really high expectations. Right. And I always say,
Yes.
like, that's good. Like, that's the positive intention of that within you. Right. And I get that about you, Bridget. Like, people accomplish a lot under your leadership, right? Like, you really help people, you push them, you help them grow, they achieve a lot with you. Right. And so we want that, right? That is all of the wonderful pieces to it. And when we've done our own rewiring to where we allow ourselves to have that commitment to excellence, but we don't have the criticism when we don't hit it, right? What happens is people still achieve greatness under us. We don't have
Right.
to give that up, but we don't do it in a way that makes it feel like they're being micromanaged or disappointing us or
Yes.
whatever, right? That they will often
Right.
and we get more from them, right? And we get more from ourselves. Like this work is about, like, in sovereignty, we learn to show up for ourselves in a different way where we're more compassionate, we're more curious, we're more understanding. We can have a bad day,
Mhm.
right? Like my son this morning ate, but he's supposed to do blood work fasting and he ate food,
Uh,
right?
mhm.
So I have a moment of like, why'd you do that? And I'm so upset. Right?
Yeah, now we have to reschedule. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, now I have to tell the lady and on and on. And normally when I'm done with that and driving and on my way to work, there would be guilt that would creep in
Yes.
about being too hard on him or now was that upsetting? And after this work, right, I'm in a place where I can understand why I reacted that way. And I got scared and I got worried about inconveniencing somebody else. And this
Yes.
is important blood. So there's in sovereignty, we have so much more access to our own compassion and understanding for ourselves, which ripples into leadership, which kind of makes us lead in all kinds of different ways.
Well, it's interesting. The more I dive in and learn about leadership myself, I become more convicted that the most important person that we lead is our own self. And if we don't lead ourselves first, we could still be an amazing leader, but we will not be the full actualization of how we could be as a leader to others.
100%. And I love what you're saying. The question I always find people come to is like, how do I lead myself differently?
Yeah.
And that's where these kind of unconscious patterns that you brought up earlier that are holding us back, right? Like we rewire the system. So self-leadership means I'm in a place of clarity. I'm in a place of confidence. I'm in a place of curiosity. I'm in a place of compassion. And so, in the moments that matter and mean the most, how do I get into that place? And that's what we start to talk about as self leadership. It's a huge cornerstone of inner family systems and the model that's been developed around that as well. So that we don't have these amazing meditations that we
Yes.
find ourselves in, but that we're making decisions from that place, right? To be fully, truly led from our greatest self energy versus our survival energy, like our fears and our sense of safety and security.
How pervasive is the survival mentality in these last 5 years? I mean, I think it's at an all-time high level.
It's at such an all time high level on many, many levels and many generations. And I always think our survivalness is related to how empowered we feel, right? And most of us are feeling less and less empowered in the world, right? There's less that we can kind of wrap our minds around and try to figure out how to maneuver. So we're seeing this in huge ways, and we're living into a time of great uncertainty,
Mhm.
right? Like never before. And the power in uncertainty is that it generally leads to the birthing of a newer next level, right? But maneuvering the uncertainty is going to bring up all of our old survival mechanisms and survival patterns, right? Because we're trying to reach for safety.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how all of that interplays with each other. And that another thing that we haven't even touched on yet, what does the possibility of failure, how does that factor in?
Mm, mhm,
Whether someone's looking to, because I know you and I have talked a few times in this conversation around making change. What if someone is very happy with their current role and they're leading others and they just want to
mhm,
become better? So it's not necessarily, this is not just only for people that are looking to make a dramatic change. But if you want to make change and you have the comfort zone, you have the desire for safety, we have our hardwired strengths, weaknesses, the things that we've talked about. What if we make these changes and we don't get the desired outcome? Or what if we create a change and fall on our face?
mm, mm.
Does failure factor in holding people back from becoming their best
Yeah.
they could be?
Yeah. I feel like I'm hearing a couple of things from you that I want to address, kind of piece out a little bit. One thing that I'm hearing from you is that some of us come to this door because we're stuck, life's not working, we know we need to change, we're aware of that, right? But others of us come into this door of transformation because we've accepted a position that
Yes.
we're rising into, right?
Hmm.
So we're invited to the next level, the door's been open, the contract's been signed, and, here you go. And now we get to
Right.
actually be who they see in us, right? And why the people promoted us or why we started the business or whatever. And so rising into who we are is definitely another place that people will seek me out to do the work, to say, I know I have it in me, but how do I shortcut? How do I accelerate my evolution? How do I get there quicker? Right? That is
That's
absolutely,
amazing.
yeah, a big piece of that. The other thing that I'm hearing you talk about, which I love, is just this conversation around like failure, right? And my thoughts on failure is like, I don't know about you, but all the times in my life where I failed, right? The worst thing that I thought could happen happened,
Right.
right? Like I went for something and it didn't work, right? Either one of two things happened. Either one, there was a phoenix moment on the opposite side of that, right? Where I rose, right? Where
Yes.
something greater came along, where a resilience or something came out of me that I didn't even know was in there and a better path came, right? So either that happened. Um, or either two, that failure was needed to help me let go of something, right? Like sometimes we get these ideas in our mind of what's meant for us,
Right.
right? What we're supposed to do. And it's like we won't let it go. I always say, sometimes the universe has to pry things out of my cold, dead hands, right? Like I just won't let go sometimes. And so that failure kind of will teach me like this is not your path. And so then the releasing and the surrendering of what's not mine starts to open up the flow again. So it does become easier. The right opportunities do show up. So I always think about failure as like just kind of a readjustment, a realignment,
Right.
right? It's going to get us on track, which I'm sure you do as well.
I do. I have a mantra which came from Mo Anderson, amazing author and major part of the real estate industry.
Mm.
But overall, she said, you fail forward. When you choose to, you fail forward. So I've embraced failing forward and I'm an expert at that. So I can, Mo, you'd be proud of me. Yeah, I fail forward, which it tends to take a little bit of the sharp edge of fear around failure away
Yeah.
because you just go into whatever you're going to do saying like I'm going to be successful or I'm going to fail forward, right? So it makes the two options a little better. So the phoenix moment, have you had a phoenix moment that is compelling you'd like to share?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, gosh, that's such a, gosh, I'm like, where do I even start? Right. Like, um, My work has definitely been born, like, from my own shift. Like, at one point, I created, like, a career, reputation, like, a family, but success didn't feel like fulfillment. And I had a moment in my life where I almost, died in childbirth, and it was my last child, and we both almost, didn't make it. And as I was really kind of reflecting on what was going on for me, I realized that I had created like a lot of performance in life. Like life was hard. I was carrying too much. It was service and self sacrifice had bled together. And I
Mhm.
the difference between either. Right. And it was that moment where I was exhausted. My adrenals were shot. I was not healthy physically. There was just a ton going on. And it kind of felt like I just don't know where to go from here. Right. It was that kind of really like hitting a wall kind of a moment. But I started to follow this idea that I didn't have to sacrifice to be loved and fulfilled and to build a life that I wanted. And it was just this tiny idea that I could stop doing it the way everybody else wanted. And I could start figuring out kind of what made me happy. And it was the beginning of this model, this sovereignty model. And it felt like such a huge step to just go, maybe it's okay to be a little selfish and
Yes,
completely give myself to depletion. And so
I
that
think that's fantastic.
yeah, a huge shift, right? And it starts in the small, subtle decision. Small decisions that kind of lead to a major life change. So if anybody is feeling kind of like overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, change and it's so big and it sounds like a lot, like we really just start making one new choice that feels liberating. It feels scary, but it feels liberating like at the same time. And it starts to create this whole new trajectory like for our life, right? And that's what we call transformation, right?
Mhm.
We do the work of transformation, who we are and who we are after should really look different, but in a brighter, more confident, more clear, more compassionate kind of a way.
So on a practical note, can you give an example or 2 of what would be one small change? Because, someone might be thinking everyone has a different idea of small. So what can you give just a few examples? What would be a small change someone could make?
Well, I think in the work that I do, the change is really an identity level shift. And so it's a bunch of smaller things that add up for new behaviors to become your next natural step. I don't know how practical that sounds because there's just a moment when, it's kind of like the bamboo tree. I think personal growth, personal development is a lot like the bamboo tree. It grows underground, I think, for like 7 years.
Mhm.
And then it like springs up like a forest overnight,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so I would say change is that way.
That's a good way to look at it. And you're not saying that you can't have your forest until 7 years from today, because anyone who comes and starts to work with you, they've already been growing underneath because they reached the point where they reached out to you. So
Yes.
you can still have your forest, your bamboo forest. It doesn't mean that it's too far away. It's just that you're you're in the journey already. The river's already flowing, to mix metaphors, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's happening already. I just
Yeah.
want anyone who's listening to know it could be it could be something very small. Just in my experience as a coach, sometimes you and I would say something like, "Start with one small change," and they may take it as,
Yeah.
"Starting tomorrow, my bedroom will always be perfect." Probably not, right? So, like, could it be starting tomorrow, you wake up 10 minutes earlier than now? Starting today, you change how you perceive yourself and speak to yourself when a certain thing happens, right? So it can be very small. It could just be a
Yeah.
little, it could be something little.
And that's the thing is we create the inner shift to allow that subtle change to happen. One example I can think of now that we're just riffing a little bit more
Mhm,
is I always like to use myself as a good example.
mhm.
There was definitely a time in my life where, as what I've shared, this will make sense so far, is that I was really a kind of a caretaker for most of the people in my life. And not because they asked me to, by the way, which is what made it more
Right.
interesting, but that I just showed up in trying to take care of other people.
Mhm.
And what ended up happening is I ended up neglecting my own needs quite a bit and then getting resentful about them, of course. But I attracted people continually that needed me to take care of them.
Yes.
Now, again, they weren't asking me, nor did they think they
Mhm.
needed any of it. So, one of the small changes that I made is I started to unwire that pattern of where did that come from? How did that help me survive? What was that really trying to do? What was it really linked to? And I found that it was linked to just an extraordinary amount of compassion for people, right? The ability to really see where they're suffering and to want to reach that place with them. And so that is powerful in its core, right?
Mhm.
But the taking it and then have wanting to caretake for them was all the unnecessary things. So one small thing I started doing was to just hold the space with them in their suffering. Didn't have to fix it. I could just be with them, right? Or I didn't have to wake up and think about everybody's problems that morning. I could just like wake up and jump in the shower. And do you know what I mean? So things started.
Yes.
So there are small changes. I had to unwire my system to do it, right? But they are these small changes of how we wake up in the morning, how we move through the day, what we end up prioritizing.
Right.
There's a great book by Kim McMillan, and it's
Okay.
called When I Loved Myself Enough. And it's a good example of what sovereignty looks like, which is lots of self love. And it's a coffee table book. I would highly recommend it. And one of the things that she'll say is, when I loved myself enough, I stopped answering the phone when I didn't want to talk. When I loved myself enough, I started to own my strengths
Wow.
instead of put them on others. So there's these really small things. The rewiring of the internal operating system is what opens up that possibility to have those small changes within our life.
Well, I think that the book sounds fascinating.
Very good.
When I loved myself enough,
Yep, Kim
right?
McMillan.
Okay. So that does give a great example where and I understand what you're saying as well, and I run into the same thing in my coaching and consulting. We meet people where they are, and it's a customized process because everyone is different, right? Isn't this where I insert a snowflake analogy? I don't know. That so it could be something entirely different. And for some people, it may be something remarkably practical. I used that word before. That is an actual tangible thing. Or and for many people, it may be that self-perception or the self-leadership or the self-acceptance and self-love. So I think that your clients probably have really benefited from you meeting them and ascertaining what's possible for them, specifically customized to them.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And I think too, one thing that you're saying I think is really key is when we're talking transformation versus change, right? Like change is I pick this chair up and throw it across the room and
Right.
it's different on the other
The
side of the
environment is different now.
That's
She
right.
led that chair to a new space. Right. Right. That physical leadership.
That's right.
Huzzah.
Right. Yeah, it's different, right? For
Right.
sure. But if I were to like repurpose this chair, melt the metal down, makes it right, like that's transformation. And a lot
Yes.
of times people will come to me, especially the high performing personality, right? You and I know, right? They'll come in and want some kind of practical action to
Yes.
almost take immediately, right? It's like, tell me what to do.
Hmm.
And to your point, that can be powerful for us, right? If I start going to the, gym every day, that's going to change my life, right? It's a very practical action. What I find is transformation requires that internal rewiring
It does.
so that I can hold that new behavior, right? And so I always tell people like it's about rewiring so you become the person that can hold that change, right? Instead of just take a new practical action that's going to relieve stress and anxiety and make us feel good. Like people who come to me are willing to put that aside and to do the internal rewiring so that they
Because you
differently.
have to become very vulnerable when you do that.
Definitely. Yeah. 100%. The vulnerability feels so much like authenticity though,
Hmm. It
right?
does.
Like, it feels like that really good stretch that you didn't know you needed when you're vulnerable,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And that's where we start to get a sense of who we really are is in those moments where we're vulnerable and we soften and we're not trying to prove or we're not trying to perform, right? Our kind of more natural self can start to shine in those moments.
Well, I want to ask you some rapid fire questions. Can you put
Do
on
it.
your Wonder Woman bracelets and I'm going to hit you?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
you got
All
it.
right. So if anyone is listening and they say, yeah, all that sounds great. Yeah, I can change, but I am too old.
Mm, Yeah, I would say that if they're feeling that, they're also probably aware of another voice inside that is saying that I'm meant for more. There's probably both voices. And what I want them to know is only one of those voices has the power to change their life.
And that's the one where they're meant for something. Okay, good. I am too out of shape slash not satisfied with my current physical body.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. And so then what does that mean? So if I'm too much of that, then I can't.
I can't make that change now. I have to wait until I do this and then I can do that.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, I can relate to that, right? Like if I have to do these things before I can actually do the thing that I really want to do, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a sense of that's definitely a little bit of perfectionism, a sense of over
Yeah.
responsibility, right? A sense of deserving to have the change versus just allowing yourself to surprise yourself. Like who knows what can happen if you feel more confident on the inside, who knows what you can do with everything outside.
Can I get you with another? Here comes one more.
Mhm.
I have this great opportunity. I'm rising into a new role, and who am I? They don't really know the real me. When are they going to figure it out? I'm an imposter, so I cannot make real change. I must stay safe and do what I know how to do that got me this role.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the imposter can hijack us. What we
Yeah.
call in those moments, we're blended with our own fears and we feel like we are whatever the fear says that we are. And what I want somebody to notice at that moment is things are being triggered for them that are pulling them into that feeling that they are not enough, right? And there's things around their value because in this culture, we are used to proving our value
Yeah.
instead of being fully present and allowing our value to just naturally shine. So, and they haven't always been here, but they're getting triggered into this space. That would be the perfect time to reach out, actually.
Okay. Good. Good. So that's something for people to look at and say, I'm going to allow someone else to come in and help guide me to create this change. Yeah, reach out. I have one more, at least one more.
Okay.
Well, this Kim lady, she sounds really fantastic and everything, but that wouldn't work for me because of X, Y, and Z. Everyone it works for, it's great for them, but they have something different than me. Like, what if someone feels like for everyone else, but not for me?
Again, that speaks to a system that's used to being in performance,
Hmm.
right? A system that says, I have to perform well and I don't do that. So, therefore, right? And what I always tell people is when people work with me, we're going to create a container, a non performance container.
A non-performance container.
Yes.
I
So,
love
there
that.
is nothing to do, there is nothing to be. There is the connection between them and I, because as you know, as a coach, that's very important, right? There's the container that we have to work together in. There's our goals that are going to drive us. But our presence together, this container is what is going to create the transformation, not the performance, not what they've done in the past, not what they think they can do. We're going to get into a more vulnerable, authentic space, not a place to perform.
But Kim, there's a table of Olympic judges that are judging my entire life, and I want to get tens when I pass away. How can I be in the non-performance container? What will
No.
the five Olympic judges say? I'm sorry. I know I'm poking fun. I'm
No.
poking fun because these are all things that my coaches work with me on. And one of them, this was a long time ago, said that to me. He's like, hold on. I'm trying to find the table of Olympic judges that are looking at you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was like, oh,
With their
okay.
microscopes.
You mean they're not there? I can see them and hear them. You can't? Yeah. But
I
that,
love
what,
it. Well, your style, if you don't mind me sharing
yeah.
some of the thoughts of
Yeah.
you. So your style is what I would call the archetype of the Empress, which is different than I know there's like I think there's a tarot card out there, Empress. So this is very different. But your style is you're somebody who has a lot of empowerment and you achieve a lot. You're built to do. You're built
Well,
to take
thank you.
action. And I always say you guys get more done in a morning, right, than most of us do all day long. What can happen with my empresses is they can get locked in this achievement zone to where the achievement becomes the identity. But my empresses are all about freedom. They are here to be free
Yes.
and not to be held by their achievements. And there's one empress that I worked with where I think it took us the entire session for her to go, oh my gosh, that's all I've been defining success by is what I achieve. Like she was just so blended with the achiever part that it was not creating freedom that she's built to create for her. It was creating limitation, which is the opposite of empress. She's here to expand.
Well, you have encapsulated, if you notice, I did not resist or counter anything that you said in that. And I can tell you, and I'll share with everyone, I had reached what you just described by the end of 2024, and it had actually manifested itself in physical issues, mental and mindset issues. Talk about performance. Every day was showtime,
Yep.
and it took everything inside of me to prepare in the morning to be showtime. And then I was still, I mean, I'll just say it. I was still doing a great job. My clients were still having results in their life and feeling, and it was everything each day. I was leaving myself on the field.
Yep.
I didn't paint. I didn't write. I didn't sing.
Mm. Mm.
I retreated from people, right? Like it was having really negative effects. And I'm happy and proud to say, and you and I did not talk about this prior. I had a Phoenix moment. It was a year ago, December, and we're coming up on a couple days from the anniversary where I went, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so these last 12 months, I have been creating and claiming the spaces, leading myself. Is it perfect? No, no, no. Did my weaknesses that I had that may have been, because here's the reality. Like sometimes when you're this, we'll just say high achiever, some of your weaknesses, it's why you stay in places where you are, because sometimes the benefit of where you are is that they help with the weaknesses, right? So
True.
they did come with me. And I have to tell you, I'm going to feel selfish for a moment. I love talking to all of my guests because I actually believe even if one person is listening to this and it changes their life, I feel like you and I have given back and that it is meaningful. And I'm going to say that our conversation has given back to me. And I feel like I can now in 2026 take what's been created in 2025 and I can really lean in. I love that Empress. Are you kidding? I didn't even know that was the archive. I will take that mantle, but I want to lean into that even more and create even more change. So
That's
thank you, because this has
yeah.
been just a great conversation
Yeah.
for me. Any other Empresses out there, hook up with me, a Facebook group or Instagram, and we can work together. Um,
A collection
this,
of
the
empresses would
collection.
change the world.
We need to start the Empress Collective.
I
I'm
love
on
it.
board. Don't worry, we'll get leverage to handle the details.
Right.
So, Kim, I can see where your drive and your Phoenix moment that you had, I can see where that came from when I think about a little bit of the history you shared with me in terms of you have an MSW.
Mhm.
clearly from a young age, you were people oriented and you wanted to, I don't know all of the archetype names, but clearly you enjoy giving care, right? And look at, transforming that now into what you're doing with Kim Page Consulting, I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
So all
Yeah.
of your contact information is going to be everywhere anyone consumes this podcast. Would you like to give a shout out to the quick way that they could connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a couple of things. My website is kimpage.consulting. So
Excellent.
kimpage.consulting. And I
Yeah.
do have a From Survival to Sovereignty quiz. And so this is where people can go in and, for those of us who like to achieve, you can see how we're measuring up in survival and sovereignty.
It
And
sounds great.
it's kimpage.consulting/sovereignty. And so we'll be
And we
sure.
got this far in this conversation, and I forgot to mention that you are an international best-selling author as well.
That is right.
How
I forget that sometimes too.
I might so you are part of a community and an author, and your book is Six Figure Chicks. What's the volume?
A Scottsdale volume.
Okay. So Six Figure Chick Scottsdale. So if someone wants to learn more about what you offer and your philosophies and what you do, they can also grab that and enjoy that.
Yeah, the book is a collection of women who have had their own phoenix moments and the transformation that happened for them and what they ended up doing on the other side.
Mhm.
And it's a great way to find yourself in other people, right? Like, I know you're writing as well, and so as
Yes.
you write yours, right, other empresses are gonna find themselves in
That's
yours, right? And so it's a great way to kinda find yourself, but to see, like, behind success, like, what does it, like, really take? And I know for me, writing the book gave me a moment of really having to realize that I've created and achieved some really wonderful things because we're always on to the next, right? We're
yes.
always on to the next mission and movement. It is a beautiful collection of really empowering women. Would highly recommend it.
Well, thank you so much for being our guest on the Inner Estate and sharing all of this insight. I'm so thrilled, of course, that you survived the near-death experience while you were in childbirth, and that your child did too. What a gift that you all made it through that. And
Yeah.
if you're listening to us today on the Inner Estate, I hope you'll join us for the next episode. Have a great day, and Kim, thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciated being here and having this extraordinary conversation.